Hello again. Another auto-assembly video. I suspect you're probably sick of me doing these now. But after putting up the closing ceremony earlier in the week, I thought it'd be quite nice to do a hopefully quick-ish video talking about the convention as a whole and my experiences there. As you can see, it's going to be a lot more better shot than the closing ceremony video, but it's also going to be a lot duller and less emotional. That's sort of the guarantee there. Obviously, before Auto Assembly actually happened, and after I recorded my pre-Auto Assembly video, TF Nation was announced for next year. Going into Auto Assembly though, because so little information had been announced about TF Nation, and still has been at the time I'm recording this, I decided to go into it treating it as if it was going to be the final convention. There's some speculation that Auto Assembly might be, TF Nation might be carried on by at least some of the same people. Certainly from it being held in the same hotel suggests they're aiming for a continuity from Auto Assembly. But until we know more, my mindset was going in, this is the final time. So we did try to approach it a bit differently in a few ways. One of which was I took my camcorder with me. You'll note it from the fact I filmed the closing ceremony. That's how I did it, amazingly enough. Other than the closing ceremony though, as I said in the introduction to that, just about everything I filmed was incredibly dull. Me talking in my hotel room, scans of the dealer's room, badly interviewing the people I was sitting with at the table in the bar. Nothing really anything substantial. Impressively, I did film a bit of a Peter Spellos panel, to sort of to have a feel of what a panel was like, and I sort of stopped exactly the moment before he sang the song, which is a bit that anybody else would have filmed. So that was kind of funny and amusing. So sort of not anything there I think will ever go public, but it was a nice thing to do. That's sort of something I can see myself watching in years to come, and I'm old and fat and senile, as a fond memento of my own ineptitude, if nothing else. And the other thing I tried to do was sort of go around and interact with people a lot more, and generally people were very, even more so than usual. The Auto Assembly is a very friendly convention, all-embracing. I was obviously surprised. There was, we became Facebook friends and Twitter friends after the last convention, but sort of in person over the years, I think we've only sort of nodded politely and smiled at one another with the recognition of people who have been to a lot of these things. This time, pretty much she was the first person I saw, got a massive hug off her. It sort of almost summed up the spirit of the convention. Everybody who was otherwise so friendly and embracing went that extra step to be even more friendly and embracing. On the Sunday night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, well, Monday mornings it would have been then, I got invited to take part in a card game. An insane card game. With various people I only knew by sight before. And that was hilarious and demented and huge fun. And that was a great thing to be asked to join in on, because that's a unique memory of the convention, even though I did really badly at the game. Cards Against Humanity, I believe it was called. So it was just lovely, and there were lots of little moments of, hey, you person I don't really know very well, but I see here every year, hey, that sort of thing, and that was fantastic. The other unique thing for me this year, but wasn't really to do with being the last convention, but did give it a different feel to any of the other auto assemblies I've been to, is that I was selling something this time. I had my book, which I was nervous about. I think I had about 10 people beforehand saying they wanted a copy and would pick one up at the convention. I took 20 with me in a separate suitcase. It was a bloody heavy thing to lug about on British Rail. So I was worried about how many I was going to bring back with me. I only brought back 5. So as I said, it was about 9 pre-sales, 6 extra ones on top of that. That was more than I would have hoped for, considering I didn't really do any huge advertising beyond my own Twitter feed, which I think was just mainly seen by people who were sick of me talking about my book. So that was not an effective advertising tool. And it was just, people were so nice as well, you know, I signed every copy I got rid of. My signature is worth nothing. I'm not in any way, shape or form a famous person, but when I said, oh, would you like to sign it as well? I got my pen out already. They politely nodded and said, yes, of course. So that was just a lovely gesture by those people in agreeing with that. And it was not sort of nice and weird at the same time to be giving copies or selling copies to people whose signatures I've got in the past. You know, James Roberts, Nick Roach, Chris Carter. That was a mind-blowing moment. Of course, especially giving a copy to Simon Furman. I'd actually been very nervous beforehand about whether I should give a copy to Furman because well, it's a celebratory book about Furman and Budiansky and their huge impact on a generation of readers. You know, when I think a story doesn't work, I say when it doesn't work. And I thought, yeah, if that was me, I would, if it was 100 pages of this man is a genius and a paragraph of this bit of this story doesn't quite work, I'd focus on the paragraph and I'd be a complete arsehole about that because I'm not a very nice person. So I actually talked about this with James Roberts beforehand on the Friday night, and he sensibly, of course, said, no, Furman actually is a decent human being. He would love a copy of that book. If it was me and somebody wrote a book about More Than Meets the Eye, I would bite their arm off for a copy, almost regardless of the content, and what you've written is incredibly nice overall about everything everybody who works for that comic did. Don't be an idiot. And of course Furman took it extremely graciously. I suspect, of course, he'll almost certainly never read it, because if nothing else, being given a book about Transformers is a bit of a busman's holiday for him. You can't imagine that would be his preferred choice of recreational reading, when so much of his day-to-day life is took up with people talking to him about Transformers. But it was a gesture of giving him a copy more than anything, because that book would not exist without his efforts, and I hope to be able to give Bob Budiansky one at some point in the future, if he ever comes over to the UK again. So, yeah, well, that was hard and surrealistic, but I think I just about managed selling the books okay, considering I've never really done anything like that before. There were 2 times I'd forgotten people had paid for their books and were sort of dropping subtle, so you going to pay for that book? Hints, when they'd already given me the money, but obviously made me look a complete tit. And there was one absolutely hilarious moment when Admiral Turnbull said to me, oh, this person would like to buy a book off you. And I thought he meant the person standing next to him, so I was like, yes, of course you can have a book. And they had no idea what I was talking about, because it was somebody over at the toy food store that Andy actually meant. Then, to make that story even more awkward, somebody had just walked over, I think, to say hi to Andy, and I thought maybe he'd lured in while we were talking about the book, and I was like, hey, would you like my book then? And they also had no idea what I was talking about. But sort of other than those small moments that made me look like an imbecile, I think I managed not to do it too awkwardly. Even though the first thing that Billy Edwards said to me when I went up to the end saying how well he's comparing and gone, it was like, oh, you're the man with the book. Which made me laugh, because obviously I have gone on about it quite a lot over the last few months. But generally I think I overall managed not to embarrass myself there. Other than that, sort of the whole social side of things went pretty much as it has the last few years. There was slightly less TF Archive people there than last year, but Denya was there, Tyrone was there, Marion, who was supposed to be the archive, but is Night Raymond's sister, and fantastically funny, brilliant person who does all the transcribes of long interviews with James Roberts, and she hung around with us mostly as well, which was pretty kind of her, because we're a strange bunch of people. And Ryan F as well, who again, no, actually does post on the archive now. I don't think he did last year. So yes, he is one of us. Sorry, Ryan, I've forgotten that. There's really great people to sit and talk to, all of them. And one of my fondest memories is actually on a Saturday night. And it was just myself, Ryan and Marion there. And they turned out to both be interested in Japanese music, so having quite an involved conversation about that. And I know basically nothing about Japanese music. My taste in music is as vanilla as it is probably possible to get. They said to me, oh, what do you like, man? I had to go, Billy Joel? Which maybe looked terminally uncool, but it was just an interesting conversation to listen into. As someone who didn't know very much about it, who were passionate about that, to talk about the different bands and styles and how hard it is to get CDs from Japan, and all that sort of stuff, actually became one of my favourite memories. On Sunday night, especially fond memory of James Roberts coming over and talking to me and Ryan, because Ryan, for mysterious reasons that cannot yet be revealed publicly, has tracked down the complete sales figures of the British Transformers comics. Of course, for James, that's something he was deeply interested in, so when he said to him earlier, you should come and talk to this man, he has something in his bag you are going to be really interested in. And he did, and he was. But he sat and talked with us for about an hour. It felt like about a whole range of subjects, many of which, sadly, I don't think can ever be repeated publicly. All sorts of stuff, even beyond Transformers, and considering that is a man with a huge amount of constraints on his time, that was incredibly gracious of him, and sort of whenever people came over to talk to him, he still sat with us, and they sort of came and sat with us. People like Lee Bradley sat with us for a little while towards the end. So that was very kind of him, especially because he must have been quite exhausted by that point as well. That was another fond memory. The convention itself, the panels, I was quite ill on Saturday from making a mistake in Stella on Friday, but I managed to see all the key panels I wanted to on Saturday, but I sort of missed the opening ceremony. I'll bet when James Roberts walked on, they played Power of Love though. And a couple of the actor panels, whatever was on for those on Saturday. But I saw the Marvel one, which was sort of stuff I think I'd pretty much heard before, but it was well told, and Furman and Wildman were both on fine form there. The IDW panel, where Nick Roach, considering he just had become a father and is presumably exhausted, he was like on 20 cans of Red Bull or something, as he was just bouncing all over the stage and hugely entertaining and scandalous as ever, but just absolutely brilliant. As was James and Andrew Griffith as well, with a more sort of dry, sardonic humour. Paul Alex Mill was quite ill the weekend, but yeah, he's pretty fine on the panel itself. Even though, of course, his energy levels weren't at their best. Though it's always on with Alex Mill, because obviously him and James and IDW have a good working relationship because they've been working together for years now. He always seems so sad at the conventions. Somebody just seems to give him a big hug. I think jet lag affected him the last few years as well, perhaps. But, you know, it's quite funny this, how he's like the Eeyore in that lineup, and you just want to go, oh, Alex, we love you. Be more happy about having to draw 500 characters in a panel. It's worth it in the end. And on the other panels, I caught most of all of the main hall was the Japanese artists panel. And that's one of the closest things that came to a panel that didn't work. It was interesting, but obviously there was only one Japanese artist on there, so it was more Americans who have been to Japan talk about what Japanese artists are like. But there's still some interesting stuff about context and different cultures. But it wasn't quite what it was advertised as. So if that was the closest thing to a panel that didn't quite work, that says about how good all the panels were overall. And the history of Japanese Transformer panels on a Friday was very well done, even though again it was mainly something I already knew. It was well presented, everybody was on fine form with it, especially of course Chris McFeely, who knows everything about everything. But I don't think I've really caught any of the other actor panels, the other panels in the main hall, which were the actors. Caught a bit of Venus Pelos and a bit of Summer Lee, as I think her name is pronounced. I've probably done horrendously badly wrong there. Both hugely personable talents with lots of energy. James Horan, I think, actually, of his panel, they seemed like a more sort of laid-back sort of person, relaxed, cool. Perhaps got a bit overshadowed by the other two because they were so vibrantly energetic. Though, of course, he was in an episode of Star Trek where he tried to kill Dr. Crusher. So I'm loving for that. It's a shame he didn't succeed. But sort of the big, of all the panels, for me, the big one was the Dreamwave early IDW panel, which was in one of the smaller rooms. Ironically, I think would prove more popular than they expected because it was so full in there. It could have gone on in the main hall, actually, but that was Simon Furman at his absolute best. Because I think sort of any discussion of Dreamwave over the last 10 years has basically boiled down to what a dick Pat Lee is. People shifted the blame for everything, whether Pat Lee was responsible for it or not, onto him. Sort of hearing what was a balanced and fair panel about Dreamwave that talked about what they did well, about their importance of bringing the Transformers comics back, about what Furman enjoyed doing with the company, and he was sort of talked about enjoying working with Don Figueroa and Joe NG, I'm still not sure how you say his surname, I'm sorry Joe, and early Alex Milne and all that stuff that he liked. And that was such a refreshing change. I mean, he was objective as well. He talked about stuff that didn't work. He talked about how things went wrong. It sort of wasn't sugarcoated, but neither was it just easy, fan-pleasing, oh, Pat Lee, what a dick stuff. And equally, the early RDW stuff, I mean, I think we all do know that Furman didn't get to finish his initial arc at IDW in the way he intended. It would be quite easy for him to again, put the boot into All Hail Megatron so he replace his arc, and that would be another fairly fan-pleasing move, I would imagine, because it's not an overly popular story with a lot of fans. I must admit, myself included. But no, he was professional, and he talked about how he had no problems with All Hail Megatron at all, or any of the stuff that happened afterwards, or that period where he was, what's the right word, where he no longer worked on the main series. And, of course, he's not currently working for IDW, he's not having to put on a corporate face. He could have basically said anything he liked in that room, but no. I think I have no reason to believe he wasn't being entirely genuine, because that's how he came across. And it was just heartwarming. There's so much where he's going to be angry or annoyed with Dreamwave, with how things went initially at IDW, at the point of Revelations and Maximum Dinobots. But this is a man who is perfectly happy with his work, as it stands, has no recriminations or ill feelings towards anybody. I did talk to him briefly after a panel in what was supposed to be just me and the person I was with, just stopping him briefly to say that was a good panel. Turned into him asking him loads of nerdy questions instead. I mean, he did sort of admit if he'd done that panel a couple of years earlier, he probably would have been harsher on Pat Lee, but he's sort of more relaxed and at peace, I suppose, if that's the right term, with that period of his Transformers career now. So it was just sort of great stuff, and it ended. I know, sort of, it's neat to say it ended, and everything was quite the last thing he said, but it felt like the climax of the panel. But it ended with him talking about how he feels that he'd have no problems with writing for Transformers again, but if it winds up he never does write for Transformers again, he's happy with that because he thinks that the franchise is in good hands, not just with IDW generally at the moment, under John Barber's editorialship, but he thinks in particular that James Roberts is, I don't think he quite use the word successor, but he feels like that is somebody who is doing such a good job. It's in safe hands. It's he doesn't worry, again, if that is the right word, about the state of Transformers comics at the moment. He thinks they're brilliant. He thinks the baton has been passed to James, to a certain extent, of course, John and Miss Scott. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your first name. I should check these things up beforehand, really, to a lesser extent, those other two main writers as well. And he feels he can walk away with his head held up high if the opportunity never arises again. And that was sort of a nice, I felt like provided a sense of closure on Simon's Transformers career. in a very upbeat way as well. That was just lovely. But yeah, I would certainly like to see Marvel Transformers again. I do think that the current IDW format, which is a bit looser than the old writing strictly for 6-issue trades format, you can have one-offs like Punishment, the two ongoings do storylines at different lengths and things blend into each other a lot more. I think that would suit Furman's writing style a lot more. He's almost free-form, mad ideas approach than the writing of trade idea perhaps did. So I'd be interested to see what he can do with them now, with their current more relaxed setup. But yeah, if he doesn't, that sort of final little moment, and again, it wasn't bidden, it wasn't somebody said, what do you think of James Roberts? It was almost set aside as the answer to another question. I thought it made it sound much more grand than it actually was, but clearly utterly genuine and very touching, and that was probably the highlight of all the panels for me. In terms of stuff, not so many toys this year, but of those I did get, one I was completely pleased, of course it's quite hard to find, Exhaust! Yay, lovely toy. I think the Masterpiece Wheeljack is my favourite of all the Masterpieces released so far. Nice, good transformation, looks great in this highly illegal colour scheme. Here's a transformer that makes cancer cool. And Chrome Dome, third-party Chrome Dome. Always loved the Chrome Dome's animation model. Don't know why, he never really did anything, but it's sort of nice to have a proper traditional Chrome Dome toy. And it's a nice toy. I think the transformation is going to take me a while to get my head round, because it is a bit different. And I think once I've sort of got the proper feel for that, done it back and forth a few times, that is going to be an absolute favourite toy of mine. The third-party Catilla. Always like Catilla as well for the Marvel Comics. The third-party Rampage works very well for him because basically Catilla was a fairly generic-looking robot and cat, so it's easy to get him out of a Predacon. I'm not sure if a robot I've transformed him properly. I found the instructions weren't that helpful. It's the robot mode head, as you probably see, sort of juts out a bit in cat mode. More obviously when he's not got the gauntlet on, you can lift his head up and move it about. I did try sort of googling better pictures because the instructions weren't very helpful there, seeing if I was transforming him wrong, but none of the pictures are that helpful either. They're all sort of angled like that. Maybe because you can't hide the head properly, I don't know, but that's the only sort of niggle with that toy. Oddly enough, if you search for third-party Catilla, one of the results is of a busty woman in her underwear. I can't get the toy to look like that. That's marginally disappointing. To me, I've tried. Also, Masterpiece Gold Bumblebee with his toy head. It's basically Goldberg. Lovely little toy, blatantly too small for what he costs, but because I picked him up in hand and didn't have to pay postage, it felt like less than I've paid for some of the other bigger Masterpieces, or sufficiently less compared to what I paid some of the bigger ones with postage. It sort of felt okay, and he's certainly a lot less than Exhaust was. He was, because of his controversial status, was a bit more expensive than usual, so I sort of mentally come to terms with that, and he is lovely. I can't see myself picking up any of the other mini-bots if they're of a similar size and price with crap accessories. I've not even took the Jetpack out of the box. By himself, because he is Bumblebee, it's just a lovely little toy. Also, original Nightbeat, yay! Wanted one of these for years. I nearly picked up a complete original Iron Fist instead, but went for Nightbeat because I love Nightbeat. Proper original Nightbeat, not the Sherlock Holmes guy he is now, the detective. Third-party people make a trench coat that will fit this guy. I'll give you money for that. Nobody else will. It'll be incredibly cost prohibitive, but I will give you money for that. Also, not Transformer at all, but Death's Head. I was so excited to get him, and he's a bit disappointed. The plastic feels odd. You can't actually bend the arms, which sort of limits poses. sadly. The one sort of comes already slightly bent. But, you know, I've got he looks okay just sort of standing there, and I have a Death's Head, and I have a Bumblebee. Guess what I spent all of Monday playing? Of course, with Death's Head, I got Simon Furman back of the box, which I've only done before with the third-party Gauntlet. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that, what you do with an open toy box that's been signed. If I want to go to draw somewhere, but it's sort of a nice, because that is his great Transformers character, and it's so lovely when he has a toy now. The rest of the stuff I got was prints and signatures on things, including from Mr. Furman on the Dracula file from Scream, which is one of his very first writing jobs. Only wrote 2 or 3 parts of it, though some of the later parts are uncredited, so he might have been involved with those as well. It's a nice, good example of early 80s British anthology comics anyway, and it's sort of good to see his very early tentative steps of a writer and that sort of development there. For Mr. James Roberts, 2 scripts for More Than Meets the Eye this year, rather than the usual one. Sadly, I have, think, from what I've seen from Marion and her Twitter feed, he was actually selling another script I didn't have. Issue 16, I think it was. I'm not sure if he'd sold out or I just got confused, having bought so many off him now, as to which I didn't already own. I suppose that was a slight shame, but there might be a chance to pick that one up at future conventions. What's quite lovely about this is that one thing I jokingly, to a certain extent, but I don't know how much of it leaves him crying in the corner, is point out how much stuff he borrows from Red Dwarf. Pretty much the first thing he said to me was, that joke in the last issue, that's basically the same as a joke in Red Dwarf. That was coincidence. I hadn't realised it was almost exactly the same joke. Stop pointing these things out. I cry to sleep every night. Why do you do this to me? But yeah, I think he was joking when he said that as the tears run down his face. What he wrote on the scripts was... he's genuinely joking when he does that. He wasn't really crying, people. That was a lie on my part. Don't write in and tell me off for obsessing James Roberts. He wrote the series of Red Dwarf in order of preference from what he considers best to worst on the script. I don't know how clear it is to make that out. On the first one, he wrote it as 2, 3, 1, 5, 4, 10, 6, and 7, leaving 8 Back to Earth off. Also great about James Roberts is we actually had then a fairly in-depth conversation about that ordering. And so on the second script, he revised this as 2, 3, 5, 1, 4, 6, 10, Back to Earth, 7 and 8. And even though he's blatantly put 6 too low on both those scripts for fool, James Roberts isn't really a fool, though. Don't write in and complain. That was such a bizarrely wonderful, surreal moment that you could only have talking to James Roberts. So God bless the man and all who sail within him. In terms of other stuff, I got 2 of which one of my plans this year was to get 2 sketches from both somebody in the Artist Alley and one of the professional artists, one of each. I'd have loved to get a sketch and a print from everybody if I could have afforded it. But sort of, I would limit myself to one of each as representative of them. One of the sketches was from Nick Roach, A Death's Head. Unfortunately, it's sort of impending fatherhood happening so suddenly to him meant it's sort of the light pencil. This is all that was finished. Very sort of, he basically threw in a print with that, so it was a buy a print and you get the unfinished sketch for free, which was nice of him. And it's understandable it's not finished and everything he was going to say, but he should have placed that above his newborn baby. He should have. So it's interesting to see what I do with that. I may try and work out some way to get it finished with my scanning it and sending it to him. But having asked him first, I wanted to do it randomly and offering him the full price of the sketch, or giving it to him again at some event in the future. I mean, it's sort of the basis is such a nice sketch, so it'd be good to get that fully inked at some point. But in the Artist Alley, it was Sprite, who I mentioned earlier. Incredibly talented woman. If you're not following her on Twitter, do, because her sketches are fantastic. You know, she is somebody, if for their retailer incentive covers on DWC, to sort of tapping the fan market, which is sort of a very nice suggestion because there is so much talent out there, and she's definitely somebody who should do a retail incentive cover at some point in that vein. I asked for her for Red Alert and Trailbreaker, the two security directors of the Lost Lights, having a drink, drowning their sorrows about how hard it is to be security chief on the ship when you're constantly getting drunk or being paranoid or having your head ripped off or having your spark crushed. And she, I thought I didn't show it off too well there, but she absolutely perfectly captured that image. So I'm very, very pleased with that. That was a fantastic thing. In terms of prints, obviously I had to get my record as well for Mr. Roach. And basically I swapped that for a copy of my book. And that is just beautiful and well worth the price. And from the guest Japanese artist, now I'm not entirely sure of her name, pronunciation wise. Kai Gobi, I think, is her online name. I'll probably pronounce it that wrong as well. But that is just a lovely Generation 2 print. Just gorgeous. And she was severely underselling her stuff as well, far too cheaply, especially for somebody who's sort of now stepped into professional work as well. So that was quite a nice thing to get. I wasn't planning to get a print from any of the voice actors, but in Miss Q, well, it's sort of unfair. It's probably somebody who was very enthusiastic at being at the convention, but somebody did stop me and tell me their entire life story unbidden with photographs. And they ended up pushing in front of me in the queue as well whilst they were doing it, but I was quite glad to let them do it at that point. So sort of to recover from that, and I'm sorry if that was you, I'm sure it was just enthusiasm. I've been there, made you tell me everything that ever happened to you, but I got a James Horan signed records print as well. But the big one, the peak of the convention, the thing that should have made everybody else, including me and my book, Leave Their Wares Home, is of course Chris Carter's brilliant fake More Than Meets the Eye toy catalogue. So much detail, so wonderful, so every single person who saw this said, why has nobody done this before? The man is a twisted, crazy genius. I hope everyone who went to this convention bought one. Brainstorm's got his briefcase. Trailbreakers Trail Cutters is called on here. Has his whatever star. Skids has his actual memory gun. There's just Ultra Magnus, the Prime Remake, you can't see this, I don't know why I'm holding it up, has a Dominus Ambus colour scheme. It's a brilliant, clever, funny piece of work, and that is the absolute peak, for me, of the whole thing. Final thoughts? Do I have any regrets about the convention? Only one, well, other than being ill for Saturday. Substantial one, that's not going up and saying hi to Andrew Wildman. As I said in my video on the London Comic Con where I met Bob Budiansky, it's easy to take Simon Furman for granted in these events, to sort of almost forget he's there, when you shouldn't, and you should go up and say hello to him every time. And Andrew Wildman is sort of similar because he goes to pretty much everyone. It does almost come easy to forget he's there. And that's doing him down because, obviously, massive contribution to Transformers. Even if I'm not a huge fan of his current style, although obviously lots of people do love it. That's just my personal preference. About printing him this year looked gorgeous. That was some of the best artwork I've seen him do, for my personal tastes, in quite a long time. I was like, oh, how wonderful is that? And also, of course, he's contributed so much to his conventions. He's a fantastic speaker on panels. He's got a nice, dry, sardonic line of humour. He puts the time and the effort in. I should have just got up and shook him by the hands and said, it's great that you've come to so many of these and done so much for them. And I found out subsequently as well, he was selling Doctor Who storyboards from Day of the Doctor, which would have been a nice thing to pick up. I think that's my pretty much only regret there, not doing that. Otherwise, though, fantastic weekend. If it is the end, that was a great way to go off on. With TF Nation, talking to, well, I know one of the guests has already been approached by TF Nation for next year, so it's obviously more going on behind the scenes than is publicly known yet. So hopefully once sort of the post-Auto Assembly afterglow has died down a bit, we'll start getting more info, if only so I can make sure I book the time off work. That'd be really helpful to have some dates. But I think it's almost certain that I'll go to TF Nation, unless there's something drastically shoddy or horrific in what is announced about it. But if it is a case that I don't go, this is a fantastic way out. And if everybody went, thank you for making a great weekend. For everyone who organised, David Wallace and Billy Edwards did a brilliant job on comparing it. Sometimes, because obviously there's lots of alcohol involved, the host scene could get slightly self-indulgent. It didn't feel like that this year, and it could have. All the stuff at the cosplay competition where they were dressing up, that was genuinely hilarious. Comedy goals, and the closing ceremony was done perfectly, as you'll have seen from watching that video, and all the post-host scene done in between was pitch perfect. So hats off to them, hats off to Simon Plume for organising the whole thing, Sven for starting it as well. It was nice to see those two on stage again. Obviously Sven's, I think, has come back to the last couple at least as a dealer, but I don't think I've ever seen them sort of on stage at the same time since Sven sort of stepped back from doing it. So that was a nice moment overall, and just sort of a perfect thing. And and the other thing I'm incredibly proud of, which I haven't bothered to pick up and put by the table, and I will make my last statement. I'm going to sneakily go off now. Pub a theme tune or something for a second. I'm back. Skillfully done there. Getting into the Cybertron Times, a final issue, because obviously I've read this every year. And it has been on, and we've done it. I think, in fact, it's been done every convention I've been to. And having the main featured article in there, written by me, was fantastic. I'd forgotten I'd written that as well, so I opened it up. I was like, what a thoughtful, intelligent person this is. No, obviously I didn't recognise it was mine, but it was a surprise when it was in there because I had forgotten. But I did it. So that was a fantastic thing to have achieved. And yes, a brilliant convention, brilliant weekend. God bless you all, and I do hope I will see as many of you as possible at TF Nation.